In a small, quiet town surrounded by green fields and tall trees, there was a high school known for its strong sense of tradition and pride. The hallways buzzed with the chatter of students, laughter echoing through classrooms, and teachers always urging their students to do their best. Among these students was Marcus Johnson, a 16-year-old boy with big dreams and an even bigger heart. Marcus had recently moved to the town from another district and was eager to make his mark at his new school. Marcus wasn't just any ordinary student. He was smart, hardworking, and had a deep love for music that he carried with him everywhere. Back in his old school, he had been part of the choir and played the piano during talent shows. But now, as he walked into this unfamiliar building filled with new faces, he felt a little nervous. Would people here accept him? Would they see him for who he truly was? One sunny afternoon, Marcus decided to visit the band room. He had heard about the school's award-winning music program and wanted to be a part of it. As he entered the room, he noticed shelves lined with shiny instruments, guitars, trumpets, saxophones, and drums. The walls were covered with framed certificates and trophies, proof of years of dedication and success. It was exactly the kind of environment Marcus hoped to thrive in. At the far end of the room stood Mr. Thompson, the principal of the school. He was a tall man with graying hair and glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. Known for being strict but fair, Mr. Thompson often supervised extracurricular activities, including the band. When Marcus approached him, he introduced himself, politely explaining how much he loved music and wanted to join the program. Mr. Thompson listened carefully, nodding occasionally as Marcus spoke. But then, without warning, the principal's expression changed. A smirk appeared on his face, and he said, "You know, we could really use someone on the flute." His tone was light, almost teasing, as if suggesting it was some kind of joke. Marcus froze for a moment, unsure of how to react. Why was Mr. Thompson singling out the flute? And why did it feel like he was mocking him? For a brief second, Marcus thought about arguing or asking why the principal had chosen such an unusual instrument. But instead he took a deep breath and smiled. "All right," he replied calmly. "I'll give it a shot." Little did anyone know, that simple decision would change everything, not just for Marcus, but for the entire school. Over the next few days, Marcus began learning how to play the flute. At first it seemed impossible. The instrument was delicate, requiring precise finger movements and steady breathing. Notes came out shaky and uneven, earning him a few snickers from classmates who overheard him practicing in empty hallways. Some kids called him names like Flute Boy or laughed openly when they saw him carrying the silver instrument around campus. But Marcus didn't let the negativity get to him. Instead, he practiced harder. Every morning before class, he sat outside under a tree, blowing into the flute until his cheeks hurt. During lunch breaks, he stayed in the music room trying to master difficult scales while others went outside to play sports. Even late at night, long after his family had gone to bed, Marcus played softly in his room, determined to improve. His efforts caught the attention of Ms. Harper, the band director. She was a kind woman with curly brown hair and a warm smile, always willing to help her students grow. One day, after hearing Marcus practice alone in the auditorium, she approached him. "You've got potential," she said encouragingly, "but you need to believe in yourself more than anyone else does." Those words stuck with Marcus. They reminded him why he started playing the flute in the first place. Not because of Mr. Thompson's comment, but because he genuinely loved music. With renewed determination, he threw himself into mastering the instrument. He spent hours researching techniques online, watching videos of professional flutists, and experimenting with different styles of playing. Then, one rainy afternoon, Marcus stumbled upon something extraordinary. While cleaning out an old storage closet in the band room, he found a dusty folder tucked away in the corner. Inside was a piece of sheet music titled "Concerto for Solo Flute" by a famous composer. Intrigued, Marcus took it home and studied it closely. The notes were complicated, the rhythms tricky, but the melody was breathtaking. It was challenging, yes, but also inspiring. For the first time since starting his journey with the flute, Marcus felt truly excited about what lay ahead. As weeks turned into months, Marcus's skills improved dramatically. What had once been shaky and uncertain now sounded smooth and confident. Word spread quickly among his classmates about the black student who was taking the flute seriously despite the initial joke. Some still teased him, but others began to admire his persistence. Slowly but surely, Marcus earned their respect, not through words but through action. One day, while rehearsing in the auditorium, Marcus met Sarah, a fellow musician who played the piano. She had heard him practicing and offered to accompany him on a duet. Together they worked tirelessly, blending the rich tones of the piano with the airy melodies of the flute. Their collaboration became a highlight of Marcus's practice sessions, giving him the confidence boost he needed to tackle the concerto he had discovered. The winter concert was fast approaching, and everyone in the band was busy preparing their pieces. When Ms. Harper announced that Marcus would perform the solo concerto, whispers rippled through the crowd. Many doubted whether he could pull it off. After all, the piece was notoriously difficult, even for seasoned musicians. But Marcus remained focused, spending every spare minute perfecting his performance. On the night of the concert, the auditorium was packed. Parents, teachers, and students filled the seats, chatting excitedly as they waited for the show to begin. When the MC called Marcus's name, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to the stage as Marcus stepped forward, clutching his flute tightly. For a moment he felt nervous, wondering if he was ready for this moment. But then, he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. As Marcus stood on the stage, his heart pounded in his chest. The spotlight shone brightly above him, and for a brief moment, he felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. He could see rows of faces staring back at him, some curious, others skeptical, and a few even smirking. But instead of letting their expressions shake his confidence, Marcus focused on the flute in his hands. This was his moment, and he wasn't going to let anyone take it away from him. With a deep breath, Marcus raised the flute to his lips and began to play. The first note floated through the air, soft but clear, capturing everyone's attention, instantly. As he continued, the melody grew richer, weaving together layers of emotion that seemed almost magical. Each note flowed seamlessly into the next, creating a sound so pure and powerful that it felt like time itself had stopped. The audience sat completely still, their earlier whispers replaced by wide-eyed wonder. The piece Marcus had chosen, the Outer Concerto for Solo Flute, was no ordinary composition. It demanded precision, control, and an ability to convey deep feeling through music. And yet Marcus played it with such ease and grace that it seemed as though the flute had become an extension of his own body. His fingers moved swiftly across the keys, while his breathing remained steady and calm. Every crescendo soared, every pause lingered just long enough to build anticipation. By the time he reached the final note, the entire auditorium erupted into applause. People jumped to their feet, clapping and cheering wildly. Some whistled, others wiped tears from their eyes, and a few even shouted, "Bravo!" For many in the audience, this was more than just a performance, it was a revelation. No one could have predicted that the boy who had once been mocked for choosing the flute would deliver such a breathtaking display of talent and determination. Backstage, Mr. Thompson watched silently, his arms crossed over his chest. His face was unreadable, but there was no denying the shock in his eyes. He had never expected Marcus to rise to the occasion like this. In fact, part of him had assumed the joke about the flute would discourage the young student altogether. But here was Marcus, standing tall under the spotlight, proving everyone, including Mr. Thompson, wrong. After the concert, the buzz around Marcus was electric. Students who had teased him before now approached him with apologies and compliments. "I can't believe how amazing you sounded," one classmate said, shaking his head in disbelief. Another admitted, "I thought you were crazy for picking the flute, but wow, you really showed us." Even teachers praised him, calling his performance inspiring and unforgettable. For Marcus, the validation was nice, but it wasn't what mattered most. What truly made him proud was knowing that he had stayed true to himself, even when others doubted him. Music had always been his passion, and playing the flute had given him a chance to express that passion in a way words never could. Now, thanks to his hard work, he had earned not only respect but also admiration from people who hadn't believed in him at first. The following week, life at school felt different for Marcus. Gone were the snickers and sarcastic comments. Instead, he received smiles and nods of approval wherever he went. Some students even asked him for advice on joining the band or improving their own musical skills. It was strange, he thought, how quickly opinions could change. Just months ago, he had been an outsider struggling to fit in. Now he was seen as a role model, a symbol of perseverance and courage. Even Mr. Thompson couldn't ignore the shift. During a staff meeting, several teachers brought up Marcus's performance, praising him for his dedication and skill. When someone mentioned the principal's initial remark about the flute, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to Mr. Thompson, waiting to see how he would respond. After a long pause, he cleared his throat and spoke. "I admit, I may have underestimated Marcus," he said slowly. "But his success proves that talent and hard work can overcome any obstacle." While some appreciated the apology, others weren't convinced. They believed Mr. Thompson's words came too late, after Marcus had already proven himself beyond doubt. Still, Marcus didn't dwell on it. To him, the principal's acknowledgement meant little compared to the support he had received from his friends, teachers, and family. He knew that his journey had taught him something far more valuable: self-belief. News of Marcus's incredible performance spread far beyond the walls of the high school. Within days, local newspapers picked up the story, writing articles about the flute boy who silenced the critics. One headline read, "From Mockery to Mastery, How a Student Turned a Joke into Triumph." Reporters interviewed Marcus, asking him how he had managed to stay motivated despite the challenges. "I just kept reminding myself why I love music," he told them. "When you care about something deeply, you don't let other people's opinions stop you." The article resonated with readers across the community. Parents praised Marcus as an example of resilience, while younger students looked up to him as a hero. Even neighboring schools invited him to perform at their events, eager to witness his talent firsthand. Suddenly, Marcus found himself in the spotlight, not because he sought fame, but because his story inspired others to chase their dreams fearlessly. Despite the newfound attention, Marcus remained humble. He continued practicing daily, determined to improve even further. He also started mentoring younger students interested in joining the band, sharing tips and encouraging them to pursue their passions without fear. "Don't worry about what other people think," he often told them. "Focus on what makes you happy, and everything else will fall into place." As the weeks passed, Marcus's influence began to ripple through the school. Inspired by his journey, more students signed up for extracurricular activities, hoping to follow in his footsteps. The band program in particular saw a surge in interest, with dozens of newcomers eager to learn instruments they had once dismissed as uncool. Even the football team started attending concerts, cheering loudly for their classmates and showing support in ways they hadn't before. Marcus noticed the change and felt a sense of pride. He realized that his decision to embrace the flute had done more than just silence his critics. It had brought people together. Music, he thought, had a unique way of breaking down barriers and uniting communities. Whether it was through laughter, tears, or applause, it touched hearts in ways nothing else could. One afternoon, as Marcus walked home from school, he reflected on everything that had happened. From the moment Mr. Thompson made that fateful comment to the night of the concert, his life had taken unexpected turns. There had been moments of doubt, frustration, and loneliness, but also moments of triumph, joy, and connection. Through it all, he had discovered something profound: the power of perseverance. By the time graduation rolled around, Marcus had become a beloved figure in the school. At the end of year assembly, he was invited to give a speech, sharing his story with the entire student body. Standing on the stage once again, he looked out at the sea of faces and smiled. "To anyone who feels like they don't belong," he began, "remember this. Your worth isn't defined by other people's opinions. Find what makes you happy, work hard at it, and let your actions speak for themselves." His words earned a standing ovation, leaving many in tears. As Marcus stepped off the stage, he knew he was leaving behind more than just memories. He was leaving behind a legacy of courage and determination. And though he was excited for the future, he would always carry a piece of this small town and its lessons with him wherever he went. As Marcus prepared to leave high school behind, he couldn't help but marvel at how much his life had changed in such a short time. Just a year ago, he had been the new kid in town, struggling to find his place among unfamiliar faces. Now he was graduating as one of the most celebrated students in the school's history. The journey from being mocked for playing the flute to becoming an inspiration for hundreds had not been easy, but it had taught him lessons that would stay with him forever. One of the biggest changes Marcus noticed was within himself. He no longer felt the need to prove anything to anyone, not to Mr. Thompson, not to his classmates, and certainly not to those who had doubted him early on. Instead, he carried a quiet confidence, knowing that his hard work and passion spoke louder than any words ever could. Music had given him a voice when he didn't know how to defend himself, and now that voice echoed far beyond the walls of his small-town school. The summer before college brought a flurry of activity for Marcus. Local organizations invited him to perform at community events, while younger students sought his guidance during music workshops. He even received a letter from the mayor congratulating him on his achievements and thanking him for inspiring others. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when Ms. Harper, the band director, handed him a framed photo taken during the winter concert. In the picture, Marcus stood alone on stage, bathed in golden light, holding his flute mid-performance. Beneath the photo, Ms. Harper had written, "To talent, perseverance, and heart, thank you for reminding us all what true courage looks like." Touched by the gesture, Marcus hung the photo in his room, where it served as both a reminder of how far he'd come and motivation to keep pushing forward. As he packed his belongings for college, he carefully placed the flute case alongside his clothes and books. It wasn't just an instrument anymore, it was a symbol of everything he had overcome. When Marcus arrived at the prestigious conservatory where he had earned a full scholarship, he quickly realized that this next chapter of his life would bring its own set of challenges. The school was filled with incredibly talented musicians from all over the world, each vying for recognition and success. Walking through the halls, Marcus heard symphonies being practiced in nearly every room, from soaring violin solos to thunderous piano compositions. For the first time in months, he felt a flicker of self-doubt creep back into his mind. Would he be able to compete with these prodigies? Did he truly belong here? But instead of letting fear take over, Marcus reminded himself of the same lesson he had learned in high school. Focus on your passion and let the rest fall into place. During orientation week, he introduced himself to fellow students, sharing stories about his journey and listening intently to theirs. Many were surprised to hear about the obstacles he had faced and admired his determination. One classmate, a cellist named Elena, became particularly close to Marcus. She often joined him in practice sessions, offering feedback and encouragement whenever he felt overwhelmed. Their friendship deepened as they collaborated on duets, blending the rich tones of the cello with the airy melodies of the flute. Together they created something neither could achieve alone, a harmony that resonated deeply with anyone who heard it. Through their partnership, Marcus discovered a new dimension of music: collaboration. Playing solo had taught him independence, but working with others showed him the beauty of connection. Back in his hometown, Marcus's story continued to inspire people long after he had left for college. Teachers used his example to motivate students, reminding them that greatness often emerges from adversity. Parents shared his tale with their children, emphasizing the importance of resilience and believing in oneself. Even Mr. Thompson found himself reflecting on the impact Marcus had made. Though he rarely spoke about it publicly, the principal began encouraging students to pursue unconventional paths, urging them to embrace their passions rather than conform to societal expectations. Meanwhile, Marcus stayed connected to his roots. Whenever he returned home for holidays, he visited his old school to mentor younger students. Sitting in the same auditorium where he had once performed, he listened patiently as nervous beginners stumbled through their first notes. Don't worry about making mistakes, he told them. Every great musician started exactly where you are right now. His advice resonated deeply with the students, many of whom saw him as a role model. Some even chose instruments they might have avoided otherwise, inspired by Marcus's bravery in taking up the flute. The band program flourished under this renewed sense of possibility, producing record numbers of participants and earning accolades at regional competitions. What had begun as a single act of defiance had sparked a cultural shift, transforming the way students viewed creativity and ambition. At the conservatory, Marcus faced moments of frustration and doubt, just as he had in high school. Mastering complex pieces required hours of practice, and there were days when progress felt painfully slow. Yet, every time he considered giving up, he remembered the faces of those who had supported him along the way, his family, his friends, and even strangers who had cheered him on during performances. Their belief in him fueled his determination to keep going. By the end of his first semester, Marcus had earned the respect of his peers and professors alike. His unique style of playing, shaped by years of perseverance and emotion, set him apart from other students. Professors praised his ability to convey raw feeling through his music, while classmates admired his humility and willingness to help others. When the conservatory hosted its annual showcase, Marcus was selected to perform a solo piece, an honor reserved for only the top students. The night of the showcase, Marcus stepped onto the grand stage, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. The audience included not only his fellow students and faculty, but also renowned musicians and industry professionals. As he raised his flute to his lips, he thought back to that rainy afternoon in the storage closet when he had discovered the concerto that changed his life. This time, however, he wasn't playing to prove anyone wrong. He was playing because he loved it, and that love shone through every note. When the final chord faded into silence, the room erupted into applause. Standing ovations followed, along with shouts of admiration. Afterward, several attendees approached Marcus to congratulate him, including a famous flutist who offered him an internship with her orchestra. For Marcus, it was a dream come true, but more importantly, it was proof that staying true to yourself can lead to unimaginable opportunities. As Marcus settled into his second year at the conservatory, he began thinking about the future. Beyond mastering his craft, he wanted to use his platform to inspire others, just as he had been inspired. He started volunteering at local schools, teaching music to underprivileged children and encouraging them to explore their creative sides. He also launched a podcast called Finding Your Note, where he interviewed artists from diverse backgrounds about their struggles and triumphs. Each episode ended with the same message. No matter where you come from or what challenges you face, your voice matters. Through these efforts, Marcus realized that his journey was far from over. While he had achieved personal success, he knew there were countless others out there still searching for their place in the world. By sharing his story and supporting others in theirs, he hoped to create a ripple effect of positivity and change. Little did Marcus know, his influence was already spreading wider than he could imagine. Students across the country were reading about him in magazines, watching videos of his performances online, and drawing strength from his example. Teachers cited him in classrooms, parents told his story at dinner tables, and aspiring musicians dreamed of following in his footsteps. What had started as a simple decision to play the flute had grown into a movement, one that reminded everyone who heard it that resilience, passion, and authenticity can transform lives. By the time Marcus entered his third year at the conservatory, he had become a household name, not just within the music community but also among people who had never picked up an instrument in their lives. His story of turning adversity into triumph resonated deeply with audiences from all walks of life. Whether it was through interviews, performances, or social media posts, Marcus's message remained consistent. Believe in yourself, and don't let anyone else define your worth. One of the most significant milestones during this period came when Marcus was invited to perform at a prestigious international music festival. Held annually in a bustling city known for its arts scene, the event attracted some of the world's finest musicians. For Marcus, being selected to participate felt like stepping onto a global stage, a chance to share his journey with an even wider audience. But as thrilled as he was, he couldn't ignore the pressure mounting on his shoulders. The weeks leading up to the festival were intense. Marcus spent countless hours rehearsing, fine-tuning every detail of his performance. He chose to play the same concerto that had once silenced critics back in high school, believing it represented not only his growth as a musician, but also his resilience as a person. To prepare mentally, he revisited old memories, the laughter of classmates, the smirk on Mr. Thompson's face, and the quiet determination that had carried him through those early days. Each memory served as fuel, reminding him why he was here. On the day of the festival, Marcus arrived at the concert hall early, taking a few moments to soak in the atmosphere. The venue was breathtaking, with towering ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and rows of plush red seats. As he stood backstage waiting for his turn, he could hear the murmur of anticipation from the crowd. When the MC finally announced his name, Marcus walked onto the stage, greeted by applause that seemed to fill the entire room. He began to play, and immediately, the energy shifted. The notes flowed effortlessly, each one carrying the weight of his experiences. There were moments of softness, where the melody seemed to whisper secrets only the heart could understand, and moments of power, where the sound soared like a bird breaking free from its cage. By the time he reached the final crescendo, the audience was on their feet cheering wildly. Some wiped away tears while others simply stared in awe, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. After the performance, Marcus was approached by several industry professionals who praised his skill and offered opportunities ranging from recording contracts to teaching positions. One producer even suggested creating a documentary about his life, highlighting how music had transformed not only his own journey, but also the lives of those around him. Though flattered, Marcus took his time considering these offers, wanting to ensure they aligned with his values and goals. Back at the conservatory, Marcus continued balancing his studies with his growing responsibilities as a public figure. Between classes, rehearsals, and outreach programs, his schedule was packed, but he made sure to carve out time for reflection. Sitting alone in his dorm room late at night, he often thought about the ripple effect his story had created. Teachers across the country were using his example to motivate students. Parents were sharing his tale with their children, and aspiring musicians were finding courage in his perseverance. One evening, while scrolling through social media, Marcus stumbled upon a video posted by a young girl named Ava. In the clip, she held a flute, her hands trembling slightly, and played a simple tune. Below the video, her caption read, "This is for Marcus Johnson. Your story inspired me to pick up the flute. Thank you for showing me that I can do anything if I try." Moved to tears, Marcus reached out to Ava, offering words of encouragement and inviting her to visit him at the conservatory someday. Stories like Ava's reminded Marcus why he had chosen to stay connected to his roots. Despite his growing fame, he never lost sight of the importance of giving back. Every weekend, he traveled to nearby schools, conducting workshops and mentoring students. He encouraged them to embrace challenges rather than shy away from them, reminding them that failure is often the first step toward success. Many of these students went on to achieve remarkable things, crediting Marcus for helping them find their confidence. Meanwhile, back in his hometown, Marcus's legacy continued to thrive. The high school band program had grown exponentially, attracting talented students eager to follow in his footsteps. Several graduates had gone on to pursue careers in music, citing Marcus as their inspiration. Even Mr. Thompson, who had initially mocked Marcus's choice of instrument, had undergone a transformation of his own. During a school assembly, he publicly acknowledged his mistake, urging students to support one another rather than judge based on stereotypes. "You see," Mr. Thompson said, addressing the packed auditorium, "Marcus taught us that greatness doesn't come from following the crowd, it comes from daring to be different. Let's honor his example by embracing diversity and celebrating individuality." The speech earned thunderous applause, signaling a cultural shift within the school. Students began supporting each other more openly, whether it was cheering on a basketball player trying out for the team or applauding a classmate performing in a talent show. As Marcus neared the end of his time at the conservatory, he started thinking about what lay ahead. While he loved performing, he realized that his true passion lay in inspiring others. He envisioned creating a foundation dedicated to providing resources and mentorship to underprivileged youth interested in pursuing music. The idea came to him after meeting a teenager named Jamal, whose family couldn't afford lessons despite his obvious talent. "I want to make sure no one has to give up on their dreams because of circumstances beyond their control," Marcus explained to Elena, his close friend and collaborator. Together, they drafted plans for the foundation, outlining programs that would offer scholarships, free instruments, and access to professional training. They named it Finding Your Note. After Marcus's podcast, symbolizing the belief that everyone has a unique voice waiting to be discovered, the launch of the foundation coincided with Marcus's graduation from the conservatory. On the day of the ceremony, he delivered a heartfelt speech, thanking everyone who had supported him along the way. "I didn't get here alone," he said, looking out at the sea of faces. "Every challenge I faced, every person who doubted me, and every moment of struggle shaped me into the person I am today. If there's one thing I hope you take away from my story, it's this. You have the power to rewrite your narrative. Don't let fear or criticism hold you back." His words earned a standing ovation, leaving many in tears. As he accepted his diploma, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment, not because of the accolades, but because he knew he was leaving behind something meaningful. His journey hadn't just changed his life, it had touched countless others, sparking a movement of hope and possibility. In the months following graduation, Marcus threw himself into building the foundation. With the help of donors, volunteers, and partners, he established programs in cities across the country, reaching thousands of young people. Workshops, masterclasses, and mentorship initiatives became cornerstones of the organization, empowering participants to pursue their passions without fear. Through it all, Marcus remained grounded, always prioritizing the needs of others over personal gain. One afternoon, as he sat in his office reviewing applications for the Foundation's scholarship program, Marcus paused to reflect on how far he had come. From the boy who had been laughed at for playing the flute to the man inspiring generations of musicians, his journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. Yet, he knew this was only the beginning. Music had given him a purpose, and now he was determined to pass that gift forward. Little did Marcus know his impact was already spreading farther than he could imagine. Schools in distant countries were incorporating his story into their curriculums, activists were citing him as an example of resilience, and artists worldwide were drawing inspiration from his message. What had started as a single act of defiance had blossomed into a global phenomenon, one that reminded everyone who heard it that greatness often emerges from the unlikeliest places. As Marcus's foundation, Finding Your Note, gained momentum, it began to transform lives in ways he never could have imagined. The organization quickly became a beacon of hope for underprivileged youth, offering them opportunities they might otherwise have never had. From inner-city neighborhoods to rural communities, the Foundation's programs reached children and teenagers who dreamed of making music, but lacked the resources to pursue their passion. One of the most impactful initiatives was the Instrument Lending Library, which allowed students to borrow instruments free of charge. For many, this was a life-changing opportunity. Take, for example, a 12-year-old boy named Diego from a low-income neighborhood in Chicago. His family couldn't afford to buy him a trumpet, but thanks to the library, he was able to practice every day after school. Within months, Diego's talent blossomed, earning him a spot in a prestigious youth orchestra. When Marcus visited the program later that year, Diego ran up to him, tears streaming down his face, and said, "You gave me a chance I never thought I'd get." Moments like these fueled Marcus's determination to expand the Foundation's reach. He traveled tirelessly, visiting schools, attending fundraisers, and speaking at conferences to raise awareness about the importance of arts education. Everywhere he went, he shared his story, not to boast, but to remind people that even the smallest acts of kindness can create ripples of change. "When you invest in someone's dreams," he often said, You give them the tools to build a better future for themselves and for others. Back home, Marcus continued mentoring young musicians both in person and virtually. One of his favorite projects was hosting online masterclasses where students from around the world could connect and learn from each other. During one session, a shy teenager from India named Priya caught his attention. She played the sitar, a traditional stringed instrument, with incredible skill but struggled with self-doubt. Afterward, Marcus reached out to her privately, offering words of encouragement and inviting her to collaborate on a cross-cultural performance. The collaboration turned into a beautiful fusion of Eastern and Western music, blending the haunting melodies of the sitar with the airy tones of the flute. When the video of their duet went viral, it sparked conversations about cultural exchange and unity through art. People marveled at how two musicians from different corners of the globe could come together to create something so harmonious. For Marcus, it was proof that music transcended boundaries, bringing people closer despite their differences. Despite his success, Marcus faced challenges along the way. Running a nonprofit required more than just passion. It demanded resilience, patience, and constant problem-solving. Fundraising was particularly difficult, especially during economic downturns when donors tightened their budgets. There were times when Marcus questioned whether he was doing enough, whether the sacrifices he made were worth it. But then he would think of all the smiles, the heartfelt thank you notes, and the countless stories of transformation, and he knew he couldn't give up. One of the toughest moments came when the foundation received criticism from skeptics who accused Marcus of using his platform for personal gain. Though hurt by the accusations, he chose to respond with grace. At a press conference, he addressed the concerns head-on, explaining that every decision he made was rooted in the mission of empowering others. "I don't care about fame or fortune," he said firmly. "What matters to me is creating opportunities for people who need them most. If that means facing criticism, so be it." His honesty won over many detractors, solidifying his reputation as a leader driven by integrity and compassion. Supporters rallied behind him, organizing benefit concerts and crowdfunding campaigns to ensure the foundation's survival. Through their collective efforts, Finding Your Note not only survived but thrived, expanding its programs to include visual arts, dance, and theater. As word of Marcus's work spread globally, invitations poured in from organizations eager to partner with him. UNESCO approached him about collaborating on a project aimed at preserving endangered musical traditions. A renowned film director proposed turning his life story into a documentary, highlighting how his journey embodied the power of perseverance. Even major corporations sought his endorsement, hoping to align themselves with his inspiring message. Marcus carefully evaluated each opportunity, ensuring it aligned with his values. He agreed to the documentary, seeing it as a way to amplify his mission and inspire even more people. Filming took place over several months, capturing intimate moments from his childhood, his struggles in high school, and his triumphs as an adult. Watching the footage brought back a flood of emotions, reminding him of how far he had come. The documentary premiered at an international film festival, receiving standing ovations and critical acclaim. Critics praised its raw honesty and universal appeal, calling it a testament to the human spirit. Viewers left theaters inspired, sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity on social media. Hashtags like Finding Your Note and Believe in Yourself trended worldwide, sparking a movement of positivity and empowerment. Amid all the accolades, Marcus remained committed to staying grounded. He returned frequently to his hometown, reconnecting with the community that had shaped him. During one visit, he attended a local band concert featuring students he had once mentored. As he sat in the audience, listening to their performances, he felt a deep sense of pride. These young musicians weren't just talented, they were confident, fearless, and unapologetically themselves. They had learned to embrace their uniqueness, just as he had done years ago. After the concert, Marcus joined the students backstage, congratulating them on their hard work. One girl, barely 10 years old, handed him a handmade card. Inside she had written, "Thank you for showing us that we can be anything we want to be. Because of you, I'm not afraid to dream big anymore." Reading those words brought tears to Marcus's eyes. It was a reminder that his journey wasn't just about achieving personal success, it was about lighting a path for others to follow. By now, Marcus's influence extended far beyond music. Educators incorporated his story into lesson plans, teaching students about resilience and the importance of following their passions. Community leaders cited him as an example of how one person can spark meaningful change. Even politicians referenced his work in speeches, advocating for increased funding for arts education. What had started as a simple act of defiance, choosing to play the flute despite mockery, had grown into a global phenomenon, touching millions of lives. Yet Marcus never lost sight of what truly mattered: connection. Whether he was performing, on stage, mentoring a nervous beginner, or simply having a conversation with someone who needed encouragement, he approached every interaction with empathy and authenticity. To him, success wasn't measured by awards or recognition. It was measured by the number of lives he touched and the ripple effects of those connections. As the years passed, Marcus found joy not just in his accomplishments, but in witnessing the growth of those he had helped. Former mentees became teachers, passing on the lessons they had learned. Students who had once doubted themselves now stood confidently on stages, sharing their gifts with the world. And everywhere he looked, Marcus saw evidence of his impact, a tapestry of stories woven together by courage, creativity, and belief. One evening, as he sat on the porch of his childhood home, Marcus reflected on everything he had achieved. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. He thought about the laughter, the tears, the victories, and the setbacks, all the moments that had shaped him into the person he was today. Though grateful for his success, he knew his journey was far from over. There were still dreams to chase, voices to amplify, and hearts to inspire. With a smile, Marcus picked up his flute and began to play. The melody carried through the air, soft and sweet, echoing the same resilience and hope that had guided him since the beginning. Somewhere in the distance, another musician joined in, adding their own harmony to the tune. Together, their music created something greater than either could achieve alone, a symphony of possibility, reminding everyone who heard it that no matter where you start, your note matters. Years rolled by and Marcus's influence continued to grow, touching lives in ways that even he couldn't have anticipated. His foundation, Finding Your Note, had become a global force for change, reaching communities across continents. From remote villages in Africa to bustling cities in Asia, the organization provided resources, mentorship, and opportunities to young people eager to explore their creative potential. What began as a small initiative born out of personal struggle had evolved into a movement that celebrated diversity, resilience, and the transformative power of art. One of the most remarkable aspects of Marcus's journey was how it inspired others to take action. Teachers who had once doubted the value of arts education now championed its importance, incorporating music and other forms of expression into their classrooms. Parents who had dismissed their children's artistic interests encouraged them to pursue their passions, knowing firsthand how creativity could shape futures. Even former critics of Marcus's work, those who had initially questioned his motives, became advocates, spreading his message far and wide. The ripple effect of his efforts became evident in countless stories. A group of teenage girls in Brazil formed a band after receiving instruments from the foundation, using their music to address social issues like poverty and inequality. In Kenya, a young boy named Juma discovered his love for drumming through one of the foundation's workshops and went on to perform at international festivals, representing his culture on a global stage. Back in the United States, a high school senior named Maya credited Marcus with helping her overcome stage fright, allowing her to audition for a prestigious conservatory where she eventually earned a full scholarship. Each story reinforced Marcus's belief that everyone has a unique voice waiting to be heard, and that when given the chance, those voices can inspire change. He often said, "Music isn't just about notes and melodies, it's about connection. It's about telling your story and finding others who resonate with it." Despite his growing fame, Marcus remained deeply connected to the people and places that had shaped him. Every year, he returned to his hometown to visit the school where his journey had begun. Walking through the familiar hallways brought back memories, the laughter of classmates, the sting of Mr. Thompson's words, and the quiet determination that had carried him forward. But now, the atmosphere felt different. The band room buzzed with energy, filled with students practicing scales, composing original pieces, and collaborating on projects. Posters adorned the walls, celebrating achievements and encouraging creativity. During one visit, Marcus noticed a plaque hanging near the entrance of the auditorium. It read, "Dedicated to Marcus Johnson, whose courage reminded us all that greatness often begins with taking a risk." Seeing his name etched in gold letters left him humbled and grateful. He realized that while he had started as an outsider, he had since become part of the fabric of the community, a symbol of hope and possibility. That evening, Marcus attended a concert featuring students from the band program. As he sat in the audience watching them perform with confidence and joy, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. These young musicians weren't just playing instruments, they were carrying forward a legacy of perseverance and self-belief. After the show, several students approached him, eager to share their dreams and thank him for his guidance. One girl shyly handed him a handwritten letter which read, "Because of you, I know I can do anything if I try. Thank you for showing me that my voice matters." Holding the letter close, Marcus smiled. Moments like these reminded him why he had dedicated his life to helping others. Success wasn't measured by awards or recognition. It was measured by the impact you had on the world and the people around you. As the years passed, Marcus embraced new roles and responsibilities. He became a sought-after speaker, traveling the globe to deliver keynote addresses at conferences, universities, and community events. His talks focused not only on music, but also on broader themes of resilience, leadership, and the importance of staying true to oneself. Audiences listened intently, hanging on to every word, as he shared anecdotes from his own life and offered practical advice for overcoming challenges. One of his favorite speaking engagements took place at a leadership summit for young professionals. Standing on stage, Marcus looked out at the sea of faces and said, "When you're faced with adversity, don't ask yourself what the world expects of you. Ask yourself what you expect of yourself, because at the end of the day, your opinion is the only one that truly matters." His words resonated deeply, earning standing ovations and sparking conversations long after the event ended. Many attendees reached out afterward, sharing how his message had inspired them to pursue their goals with renewed vigor. For Marcus, these interactions were among the most rewarding parts of his career, not because they added to his accolades, but because they proved that his story had the power to ignite change. In addition to public speaking, Marcus continued performing, though less frequently than before. When he did take the stage, it was always with purpose. Whether playing solo or collaborating with other artists, he used his music to convey messages of unity, hope, and healing. One particularly memorable performance occurred during a benefit concert for refugees, where Marcus joined forces with musicians from diverse backgrounds to create a piece that blended traditional and modern sounds. The result was a breathtaking symphony that transcended language and cultural barriers, leaving audiences moved to tears. Afterward, a journalist asked Marcus what he hoped listeners would take away from the performance. Smiling softly, he replied, "I want them to remember that we're all connected, that our differences make us stronger, not weaker, and I want them to believe in their ability to create positive change, no matter how small it may seem." As Marcus entered his mid-30s, he began thinking about the next chapter of his life. While he loved mentoring and performing, he knew there was still more work to be done. He envisioned expanding the foundation's reach, creating partnerships with governments and organizations to ensure access to arts education for every child. He also dreamed of establishing a network of creative hubs, spaces where young people could gather to learn, collaborate, and express themselves freely. To fund these ambitious plans, Marcus launched a campaign called "A Million Notes," inviting supporters to contribute whatever they could, whether it was time, money, or skills. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people rallied behind the cause, organizing fundraisers, volunteering their expertise, and spreading the word through social media. Within months, the campaign exceeded its initial goal, proving once again that collective action could achieve extraordinary results. Looking back on his journey, Marcus marveled at how much had changed since that fateful day in high school when Mr. Thompson had jokingly suggested he play the flute. What had started as a moment of mockery had transformed into a lifetime of purpose. Through hard work, determination, and unwavering belief in himself, Marcus had turned adversity into triumph, not just for himself, but for countless others. He often reflected on the lessons he had learned along the way. Resilience, he realized, wasn't about never falling. It was about getting back up each time you did. Passion wasn't about pursuing perfection. It was about embracing the process and finding joy in the journey. And success wasn't about achieving fame or fortune. It was about making a difference, however big or small. On a quiet afternoon, sitting in his garden surrounded by blooming flowers and chirping birds, Marcus picked up his flute and began to play. The melody flowed effortlessly, carrying with it the weight of his experiences, the laughter, the tears, the victories, and the setbacks. As the final note lingered in the air, he closed his eyes and smiled. Somewhere in the distance, another musician joined in, adding their own harmony to the tune. Together, their music created something greater than either could achieve alone. A symphony of possibility, reminding everyone who heard it that no matter where you start, your note matters. And so, Marcus's story continued, not as a tale of one man's triumph, but as a testament to the boundless potential within us all.